Welcome back everyone, this is Alexis from Nitrous and Sour. Today we're gonna make a tutorial for an ability system. The first ability we're gonna do is just throw a projectile like a lightning bulb or something like that, but we're gonna connect it to an ability system and to our widget. So we're gonna start by doing the projectile that we want to throw. What we're gonna do is an actor blueprint. Let's call it projectile. And if you go in it, all we're gonna put is a particle system that looks like the projectile we want to throw. Let's say we do the lightning bolt like I said. I have this. Let's just put it at the right place. Good, we're gonna start with that. And then we're gonna add a box collision. Let's see, because it's a lightning bolt, it's gonna be a sphere. And we're just gonna size this sphere, the whole sphere, a bit bigger, because that's like the area that that's the area that is gonna overlap an actor to hit the actor or whatever. Now what we're gonna do is create the ability, cast the projectile basically. We're gonna go in our third character blueprint and start by choosing, let's say if you hit Q, it's gonna throw the little thing. So we want to make a variable that's called cast ability 1. That we're not necessarily gonna use right now, but we're definitely gonna want to branch on the fact that you're casting the ability. And like if you have 5 different ability, you want to branch on the condition that if all these ability are being cast, you don't want to cast the ability basically. So if you're not casting the ability 1, you'll be able to cast the ability 1. The other thing we'll want to check is if you have enough mana to cast the ability. So let's say it's gonna cost 0.15 points of mana, and we check. We get the mana. If it's higher than 15, then we can cast the ability. To cast the ability, we're gonna start by disabling my character movement. And if you want to disable totally the character, you have to stop movement immediately. And it's the movement of the character movement, obviously. And we're gonna make ourselves more space. Okay, now we're gonna take some mana out because we're casting it. Let's say minus. We said the spell would cast 0.15 points of mana. That's why we put 0.15 over here, because if you have less than 0.15 you cannot cast, because the spell is asking for more mana than what you have. And then we're gonna set cast ability 1 and we're gonna set it to true. So you cannot cast a lightning bolt while you're casting a lightning bolt. Now we're gonna spawn the projectile. I'm just gonna put a little delay. And we're gonna spawn projectile. Spawn actor from class, sorry. And the class that we're gonna spawn is our projectile class. Okay, so now we want to cast the projectile from the character, so we're gonna get actor transform. Actor transform. Then we're gonna break transform. Then make transform. But the location is gonna be a bit different because personally the scale, everything is the same, but sorry, my character, like the place where I'm casting the projectile is from my hand. So usually I make a vector, add a vector, sorry. And the vector is like -30 on the y-axis and +15 on the z-axis. So it's not like on my head and or on my back, it's in front a bit to the side, so it's literally on my right hand that I'm trying to cast the ability. Let's say it like that. And then I plug all that to where I make my projectile spawn. Good, so now I'm gonna the ability is mainly done. We're just gonna delay for a little bit the time that we're casting the ability. Then we're gonna set cast ability 1 to false. Then we're gonna set the movement mode of our character movement back to walking. And of course, we're just gonna wait maybe, I don't know, 2 seconds. I would delay then 2 seconds, sorry. We're just gonna wait maybe 2 seconds. Because now here you're casting the projectile, it's leaving your character. For a second, it's gonna keep following the track that it's going and will want to destroy the projectile after a while. We don't want the projectile to be in the map forever. So it's gonna be destroyed here. And don't worry, when we'll put an enemy, we'll destroy the projectile when it hits the enemy. Good. I'm just gonna make it easier for myself. Okay, so that's basically our ability. Alright, so I made a couple of small mistakes. It's my bad, I'm totally sorry. First off is right here in the ability. You need to put bigger or equal, not smaller or equal, or it's not gonna work. The other mistake that I made is I think here I clicked on hidden in game, but you don't wanna hide your particle effect in game. And the other thing that I totally forgot is in your projectile, you need to add something that is called projectile movement. And it's right over here. And then in projectile movement, you'll put the initial speed and max speed to like 1000. You put the gravity scale to 0. And it should be okay. So then the projectile can move. So now if we look, oh sorry, are we casting it? Yes, we're casting it. It's moving forward. We're just not moving. The character is just not moving. So now we're gonna find an animation. I don't have a lot of animation, but I have, I think, we're gonna make use of what we have. I think I have like a warrior who bashes shield that can look like a throw. Alright, so right here I found that. It's a good example because it doesn't look at all like a throw, but we're gonna work with it. We're gonna reassess it. If there's no source, you just apply it to an asset, and usually there is a source. And I'm clicking everywhere. There is no source. So now we're gonna force the source by putting it over here too. Clip. Enable root motion. And then we have the source. We're gonna target it. Okay, we're gonna put it in our retarget animation. and then we're gonna start working with it, because we definitely want to cut all of that. Blast. And maybe accelerate it a bit, because it's not supposed to take that long to just throw something. Like, perfect. Now we're gonna go in our, not in our third person BP, we're gonna go in our anim BP, because we're gonna call the animation from our state machine. In default, that's our state machine. And we don't want him to cast the ability while he's jumping, I guess. So we're gonna start really easy. Add a new state and say cast ability 1. And inside that cast ability 1, we're gonna take that animation I just did. It's this one. Good. But if you've never played in a state machine, basically you need to connect everything. I guess you can see it like another kind of if what's the condition for your character to go from idle run to cast ability 1. Basically, we created a variable that is called cast ability 1, and if this variable is on, it means that you're casting ability 1. So we want to call this ability inside of our anim BP. So what I usually do is make a sequence. Because it's all happening at the same time. But it's two totally different things. So we're gonna cast to third person BP. We're gonna get player character. We're gonna create a variable in our NMBP that is called cast ability 1. Whoops. In our state machine, we're gonna call the state casting ability 1, because we cannot have a variable and a state that is the same name. So here we'll be able to call it cast ability 1. So basically we can go in our state machine, and now the cast ability 1, we can use it. So we can say if cast ability 1 is true, then I can cast the ability, and if it's not true, then I'm not casting the ability. Oops, equal. Well, not equal. Okay, and if we test it, boom. Okay, now he's doing twice the move. That's really simple. It's because in the character blueprint, we set some delay over here, and I guess we just want to put a 0.2 delay, and over here also maybe attack as if we calculate it, because he's gonna start walking after 0.7 second, so that means the animation should be 0.7 second, and if it's not, it's gonna do it more than no, that's perfect. It's in sync with the animation, and let's see if the projectile is destroyed. The projectile get destroyed after a couple of seconds. Perfect. And what we can do more now is set it to an ability system. So what we're gonna do is pretty simple. We're gonna create a variable that is called Ability Cooldown. It's gonna be a float. Good. And Ability Cooldown is always equal to 1. It's 100%. And before all that, we're gonna branch again, and it's if the ability cooldown is higher or equal to 1. And I mean, we already have mana, but you can do either both, or a concept where it took some mana, or where it's an ability that's gonna use that's gonna shut down, then there's a cooldown for the ability to recharge. So that's what we're gonna do, a system for an ability. So now we're gonna make sure that the ability is full usable, then we can use the ability. And at the end of all that, let's say before the 5 second and it get destroyed, so it start reloading before the projectile is destroyed, we're gonna set ability cooldown to 0 so it can start recharging. Although we didn't make anything to make the ability cooldown recharge, but that's what we're gonna do right now. We're gonna make another custom event that's called update ability cooldown. Okay, so we have our update ability cooldown. We're gonna start by branching on the condition that the ability cooldown is smaller than 1, because we don't want to add something to the ability. If it's already equal to 1, we don't want to add something to it. Whoops, smaller. Then if it's true that it's less, we're gonna put a delay. I'll explain why we put a delay just after the next comment. We're gonna set ability cooldown, and we're gonna add to the ability cooldown a certain amount. So let's say 0.1. Me, what I like to do is create another variable that is called ability update, because right now there's no real reason to make that variable. But if you're making a real game and you want to play with the cooldown of your character, like his ability can cool down faster or slower, then you can play with this variable, because the delay that we put right over here means every 0.5 second the ability cooldown is gonna get 0.5 let's put 0.1. It's gonna get 0.1 unit add to it. So it's gonna take 5 seconds for the ability to completely be charged. And what the other thing we're gonna do, we're gonna branch on the condition that the ability cooldown is higher than 1. Okay. If we add, and at some point we're over 1, we want to set it back to 1. Good, so now we have our event that's gonna recharge our ability. The last thing we want to do is put the ability in our widget. Let's put this one. We're gonna add a progression bar inside of it. And you should go on the internet to find some image. I didn't look too hard, and I have let's say this image of lightning. I don't know which one. I just cut some because this might be too big, but let's use this. It's this one. So right over here, I'm just gonna copy paste the name. Go back to the RPG odd, and where for the image, we're gonna put that image. Is it? It's all square and stuff like that. Just change the margin a bit, and everything should look perfect. Can we put the margin to 1? No, 1 is too much. 6 maybe. That's good. Okay, so for the background image, I'm gonna take the same image. Okay. But then I'm gonna make it look way more opaque. Can I see how it's looking? We have to rearrange the margin too. Good. So now it's kind of looking like ability recharging. Let's put it even darker. And what you can do is make it start from bottom to top, so it looks like an ability. Cool. And again, on this ability, because it's a progress bar, we're gonna go on the percent and create a binding. Let's call that binding ability update, or just ability 1. And we're gonna cast to third person. Blah, 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 blah. We're gonna cast to third person character. Get the player character. And then we're gonna put our custom event, update ability cooldown, and we're gonna set the ability cooldown. And we're gonna get the ability cooldown and put it as the value for the progress bar. So now if we look, now it's obvious I forgot to anchor that. So it moved when it changed the size of the screen. So now it's right here. But it's working. It's working the wrong way because obviously I put the filled image on the background and I made the background on the field. So bum bum. Good. So now if we look, we can throw a lightning bolt and it's recharging. It took some of our mana. Once that it's recharged, boom, I can throw it again. Need some times to recharge. Boom, I can throw it again. All right, so thank you everyone. Have a nice evening and see ya.